guys, I'm Chris Buck and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks. On this week's video I'm going to be talking all about my first ever Stratocaster. Now in shooting last week's video, in case you haven't seen that by the way, I'll stick a link up below. It's all about my first ever guitar, which was a Squier Affinity Telecaster that my parents were kind enough to buy me when I was about 12-13 years old. In the process of shooting that video last week, stringing it up and playing it and recording it for the video, really got me thinking about guitars which are valuable to me. And that's not necessarily in a kind of monetary or financial value, but guitars which have sentimental value attached. And if last week's guitar, is the guitar that I would grab first in the hypothetical house fire, this week's guitar again is definitely the second. It's my first Strat, as I said, and just in terms of my development as a musician, and you know how much of a part it's played in my development as a person, I guess ultimately what I am and what I do now, it's been absolutely essential. It's been an integral part of my arsenal for a very long time, and has been with me all around the world. Been over to the US, over to Europe, all around Europe on various tours and various gigs. It's just an incredibly important guitar to me. So I got a lot of questions about this. You know, it's appeared on a couple of videos, not so much recently, but a couple of years ago. And I've made reference to where you've maybe heard this guitar, but haven't necessarily seen it, not to sound too cryptic. So I thought it was high time I did a video just outlining some of its kind of finer points and explaining what it is. So first and foremost, the kind of most important detail about this guitar, I guess, it's not a Fender. It's a home-built guitar that my old man and me, very minimal involvement in the process, more a hindrance than I was a help, to be honest, more than likely, put together when I was about 17 years old maybe. I would guess 17 is the first age where I can really remember kind of playing this guitar. And honestly, my first kind of knee-jerk response to this guitar was that I absolutely hated it. I was very much in the kind of full throng of my Les Paul love at the time, very much a Slash fan, very much, very much into that hard rock thing. And humbuckers and Les Pauls were kind of essential for that, to be honest. So when this was actually finished, the first thing I did was the same thing that I did with every Les Paul I played. Flick it down to the bridge pickup and try and rock out. And unsurprisingly, if you're kind of trying to replicate the sound of a Les Paul on a Strat, you're only ever going to kind of be in for disappointment. And that was exactly what I felt with this guitar. So it went back in the case, back in the cupboard, and just didn't get a hell of a lot of use for a very long time. And it was only really when I joined my first proper band, the Tom Hollister Trio, going back, I would have been about 18, 19, I guess, that I dug this guitar out and made a very conscious effort to try and sound a little bit different. It's only so long that, you sound like Slash, actually is a compliment. So it was very much a considered sort of conscious process to dig out another guitar and try and sound like me a little bit more, try and develop my own voice. And in that respect, this guitar has played a massive role in my development as a musician, just sort of exposing myself to different types of music and surrounding myself with different people and trying to sound a little bit more like myself ultimately. So this guitar has been very important in that process. In regard to specs of the guitar, it's a very weighty guitar is the first thing to actually point out. It's a 3-piece swamp ash body. Comes in, the guitar in its entirety comes in at just over 8 pounds. So it's pretty weighty in that respect. It's a lot of Fender parts, Fender bridge, Fender tuners, Fender saddles, Fender jack plates, as much difference that makes. Fender strap locks, as much as I've never used them. A Fender trem setter in the back cavity, which I only discovered today. It does ring a bell, actually, thinking back to when we were putting this guitar together. I was pretty insistent that every Strat I'd ever played went out of tune when you use the tremolo. So my old man, much to his credit, invested in this trem setter, and I would be lying if I said I'd ever use the tremolo on it. I don't know where the tremolo arm is. It's just never really been used, so I'm sure he thanks me for the added expense and added ball ache of putting that together. It's a Fender licensed Mighty Mite neck. As I said, it's a 3-piece swamp ash body. Just a very well built, very solidly built guitar that just has always sounded great. The pickups in it actually, if memory serves, came with the scratch plate as a kind of complete assembly. They Wilkinson, bought from Axis Russ, I do believe, maybe the website. I don't know whether that's even still going. And they were kind of bought primarily as a little bit of a stopgap, to be honest, until I maybe put something different in there. But I've always been impressed with the way they sounded, so they stayed in there. Interestingly, looking back at this guitar, having dug it out again for today's video, it's interesting to see how the pickup bobbins have actually sunk down nearly kind of flat with the pickup covers themselves, to be honest, due to the hammering that they've taken over the years. And just, as I said, you can see from the fretwork with this guitar how much I've played it. It's been on a whole host of stuff, from my first ever proper gig, with my first proper band, I should say, at the Troubadour in London. going through to playing with Slash at the NIA in Birmingham. Through a couple of recordings where you may actually not have seen the guitar, but you've undoubtedly heard it. Miss You, my cover of Miss You by the Rolling Stones being a prime example. I've explained it before, but snapped a string on this guitar when we were shooting the video, so I just grabbed my Telecaster, which was the nearest guitar, so shot the video with that. But you are actually hearing this guitar. Same then goes with I Can't Make You Love Me. Again, I think I was just impressed with the way that the Telecaster looked in the Miss You video, so I used that again, but you are hearing this guitar. And most recently, I guess, it was at Download Festival with Buck and Evans, you know, in front of a couple of thousand people. So that's a pretty cool memory to kind of sign off on with this guitar, to be honest. Because ever since that moment, it was actually leaning up against my back of my amps. On that day was my Highway 1, which I think at that point maybe had Mark 1 of the prototypical, is that even a word? Prototype pickups that I was developing with Radio Shop at the time. And ever since that moment, that guitar, the Highway 1, has kind of been my main Strat. So this has taken a little bit of a back step. But in digging it out for today's video, it's just reminded me what a great guitar it is, how solidly built it is. Testament my old man really kind of, you know, nailing it first time round. First guitar he'd ever put together. So as I said, more luck than judgment, more than likely. I don't think he'd mind me saying that, but it just turned out incredibly well and has served me, you know, faultlessly down the years. So I'm sure this will start reappearing again at some point. It's a guitar I get a hell of a lot of questions about, so I thought high time to do a video about it. And no more fitting way really than signing off today's video by actually playing Miss You with it and giving it its kind of moment in the spotlight that it was kind of deprived of, I guess, when I shot that Miss You video. So as ever, I've been Chris Buck. This has been Friday Fretworks. Please do subscribe if you haven't already, and I shall see you next week for another episode. Cheers guys, take care, see you soon.